right. So, hello, everyone. On behalf of the Shawnee County K-State Research and Extension Office, welcome. We are so excited for the third webinar in our Planting Wild series, Managing Urban Wildlife, presented by Shawnee County Master Gardener Jaki Tancabelic. Before I turn it over to Jaki, I'd like to ask that all participants turn off their microphones as you have and video cameras for the duration of the presentation. If you have any questions at all, feel free to type them in the chat box where I can relay them to Jaki, or once the presentation has concluded, we can all turn our mics and cameras on and have a little discussion. So we will be recording today's webinar. Later this week, the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel, on our website, and we will email a copy to all our registered participants along with a very short survey. Please take time for our 2-minute survey. It helps us continue to provide quality programming for our community. All right, well, it is my pleasure to introduce Shawnee County Master Gardener Jaki Tancabelic. Jaki.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webinar. I do agree with, I think, Carol's comment that it's nice to be inside in this very muggy day. So today we're going to be talking about managing urban wildlife. When we talk about wildlife, we cannot really exclusively limit it to urban. So there is going to be quite a bit of overlap with what's going on with the rural area. Before we start, let me put the statement about Kansas University, which is an affirmative action, equal opportunity employer that doesn't discriminate on the basis of race or sex or gender, gender identity, religion, age, height, weight, disability, political belief, marital status, family status, or veteran status. So, let's talk a little bit about what happens when we see that some critter destroyed our favorite flower, bush, tree, or lawn. First, we want to kill it. And most people really don't think about what really caused this particular critter to attack this particular plant or lawn or attic or basement. And if no action is done to correct whatever caused it, it's going to happen again. Animals usually multiply quite abundantly, especially if they have everything they need to have young ones, water, shelter, and food. And as we know, in our so-called civilizations, as humans developed their habitats, they basically encroached in the area that was covered with wildlife. So becoming urbanized leads to conflicts with wildlife. And this is how it looks. There are 4 major principles of wildlife damage management. They are called basically tips beneath it. First, we have to recognize the damage pattern. Can you hear me? Because it says my internet connection is unstable. Okay, so first we have the damage pattern, and we have to also identify which species is responsible for it. Then we really need to know something about wildlife biology, if not a little bit more than something, in relationship how we're going to manage the wildlife. Then we have to know different ways of managing the wildlife. And most importantly, we need to know the local, the state, and the federal laws regarding managing wildlife. General prevention includes securing trash cans, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Bird feeder modifications, cleaning up the yard by removing overhanging branches from the trees, screening vents and flutes, and most importantly, don't feed the cute little critters. Habitat modification, think HER. HER stands for H, habitat modification, E, exclusion, and R, removal. Habitat modification, it's a fancy way of saying take away the food, the cover, the shelter, and water. Just don't give them a chance to settle in. Exclusion is done by fencing and by repellents. In a way, get them out of here or don't let them come in. And removal, which can be dead or alive. I have to mention, because it's part of the course, fertility control or contraception. The idea behind it is to reduce the wildlife population size. Different methods have been tried in the past, from mechanical, surgical, to endocrine disruption, to immunocontraception, but overall, it's still something that is experimental. And the issue is the delivery methods, which are still being tested. Wildlife translocation, or basically moving animals from one side where you caught them to somewhere else, is also part of the management. The problem is that most of those animals, once you move them, if they survive, they will come back where you captured them. Or new animals replace the ones that are moved, and by moving the animals from South Topeka up to North Topeka, you're basically getting rid supposedly of your problem and making a problem for somebody else. The issue is also how cost effective it is, governmental policies, and overall consequences of such an action. Euthanasia. Euthanasia is basically done first by medications that affect the respiratory muscles and medications that affect the brain center for respiration and breathing. That is done by injection or bullets, I guess, that have these drugs in them. And then the physical methods, which are really ugly: gunshot, cervical dislocation, decapitation, and captive bolts. So, must wildlife die? How safe it is to use the meds? What are the ecological consequences of using the medications? Is it practical? Is it humane? Is it legal? And what if it comes into the evening news, and how it would look like? So let's address the legality of it. There are very clear laws in Kansas regarding killing animals. Basically, owners or legal occupants of her land or her building are not prevented from killing an animal that is found in or near the building or in the premises. But first, it has to be established, does the animal belong to a protected species? The second thing is this animal used or possessed with the intent to be killed? And the third thing is every attempt to solve the problem without killing should be made before the animal is destroyed. How do we inspect for wildlife damage? First, we have to see where the problem is occurring. Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? Does it affect the livestock or other animals? Does it affect the vehicles? What do you see or smell? Do you see bones, feces, track? Do you smell musty? Do you smell dead? The outdoors covers the ground, the shed, the porch. Do you see a hole? Does the hole extend or ends? Is it just a groove, or you see your turf majorly disturbed? And what is the size of the hole? So the structural hole identification actually gives us an idea about what animal we're dealing with. If the diameter is about a pencil, those are mites and most probably bats. If the hole is about quarter size, we have to think about rats, chipmunks, and the flying squirrels. If the hole is about the size of a baseball, then we have to think tree squirrels and skunk. If the hole is grapefruit size, then we're talking about a raccoon. What time of day or night does the damage occur? So daytime damage is usually caused by birds, by chipmunks, by ground and tree squirrels, and by woodchucks. Day or night, those are the busy ones, gophers, coyotes, moles, and rabbits. Nighttime damage is usually done by deer, opossum, raccoon, bats, and voles. So now we're going to talk about deer. Although we all live, a good number of us live in Topeka. I live in Briarwood, and lo and behold, due to the closeness of the Shunga Creek and Shunga Park, we did see a few times deer running through our street. So deer are cute as long as they're not in your yard. The best management of deer is really population control. Back east, where the deer and Lyme disease, the disease that is transmitted by ticks, has been a significant problem. They really did wonderful studies in showing that the best way to control Lyme disease is to reduce the deer density to 13 animals per square mile. And the result was a significant decrease in tick abundance, a 70% reduction in insect risk index, and most importantly, an 80% reduction in residents reporting cases of Lyme disease. Fencing or exclusion is another way of taking care of deer. I highlighted the two, the most expensive and the cheapest way of doing fencing. If you look at the chain link fence, which is quite costly, with a height of over 10 feet, the efficacy is quite high, the longevity is quite high, and the maintenance is low. Some people look at electric fences. This is at the bottom of the list. And we can see that the cost is quite cheap. The efficacy is okay. The longevity is okay, but the maintenance is quite high. The best way to do the fencing, according to Professor Lee from K-State, is to basically do a double fence. The deer cannot discern which fence is closer or further. They cannot really gauge the distance between the two fences, like parallel fences that are there. Now, going into detail how much it will cost to do that on a large lot, like multiple acres, is a different, it's not the point of this topic, but that is quite a strong deterrent. This is a study that was done in 2013 by a young girl, 7th grader from Pennsylvania, and she won the 2013 Young Naturalist Award that is assigned by the Museum of Natural History in New York. So basically what she did, she looked at the effectiveness of deer repellent on eating habits of white-tailed deer. She used corn cobs about the same size and used commercial deterrent, deer deterrent eggs that smells of putrefied eggs, dried blood, coyote urine, and REPELLENTS. And then she used also homemade material, hot sauce, human hair, soap, and then she had the control. Basically, she did a very good job in repeating the study several times in order to confirm the results. So the best thing that works is eggs, liquid fence, because of the bad smell and bad taste, followed by dry blood. Interestingly enough, of the homemade stuff, hot sauce, diluted Tabasco, seem to be working much better than coyote urine or Repel. So a word about repellents. Are they always successful? Well, it really depends on, does the animal find another source of food nearby? If there is nothing else to eat but that stuff that is smelling bad or that is quite peppery, they will eat it because hunger is a very potent instinct and reflex. Also, weather conditions. All those repellents basically after rain need to be replenished. So that turns out to be quite an expensive proposition. If it rains frequently, the repellent goes away, then one has to reapply it again. This is a list of the plant selection that deer don't like. From common boxwood to Russian olive, American holly, Colorado blue spruce, eastern red cedar, European white birch, beauty bush, forsythia, honey locust, they really don't care about these plants. And they don't care about these flowers either. Some are poisonous for them, and some really are not palatable. Asters, thorny roses, lamb's ear, just the texture. They don't like the texture in their mouth. Flowering dogwood and barberry. A great deterrent for deer are actually dogs. They don't like dogs, and dogs love to chase them. So having a few dogs on the property, if it is a big property, is a great deterrent for deer. Let's switch gear and talk about rodents, which are rats and mice. How do we know that we have a rodent infestation in the house? Well, their droppings are usually the indicator. We find their droppings around food, in drawers, cupboards, under the sink. We can find the nest in shredded paper, fabric, or dry plant material. We can find signs of chewing on food packaging, especially with rats. We can find holes that are chewed through walls and floors, and also a stale smell that comes from hidden areas. How to prevent the infestation? First, it's important to seal all the holes inside and outside the home to keep the rodents out. Basically, plug the small hole with patch the holes or with the metal, basically, how do you call it? Let me just move this. Steel wool, that is the word I was looking for, steel wool. Also, if you have mulch that is too deep, or you have huge actually piles of leaves that haven't been cleaned for several years, that's a great nesting site for rodents. Make sure to clean up the food and water sources in and near the house. The kitchen garbage in container has to be really well secured. And if you have a compost bin and add the food scraps daily, make sure to cover them up so that they're not on the surface. And while you're controlling an infestation, stop feeding the outdoor birds because those seeds are just dessert for rodents. Rodent bait products, I'm not going to go through the chemicals that are used in rodent bait products, but I think it's very important to remember that those are quite strong chemicals and they need to be kept away from the reach of children and pets. And if you're using traps or baits, again, use it only on location where children and pets cannot access them. Never store them next to food, including pet food. And also always read and follow the instruction on the label. If you manage to catch a rat or a mouse, promptly remove and dispose of the carcass of the dead animal so that a pet might not go and eat it and poison himself or herself in the process. Information about rodenticides are readily available on the Environmental Protection Agency site. There is also a very nice article about risk mitigation decision for 10 commonly used rodenticides that was published in 2008. So here is information of how to reach that if you want to know which one would be the safest, which is the best tested, and so on. Okay, let's switch now to birds. So with birds, the control must be species specific. And also we have to remember that some bird species are fully protected. Commonly used methods include exclusion, netting, frightening the birds with flags, balloons, distress tape, scarecrows, and also chemical repellent. Very popular are laser bird control methods. It's quiet, it's non-lethal, and it can be used in urban and rural areas. The results of a study show that double-crested cormorants actually respond to the laser very nicely. After 3 evening application, 90% of them just flew away. With the geese and mallards, it's a little bit different. The mallards, basically after 20 minutes, just came back. Brown-headed cowbirds and starling are not repelled, they don't care. And pigeons, for 5 minutes, they fly away and then they come back. So laser is quiet and non-lethal, but except for the cormorants, they're not very useful. And now we come to the bane of my life, rabbits. With rabbits, habitat modification is really, really important. Remove brush piles, debris, weed patches, rock piles, and other types of cover that rabbits can use as an escape cover. Using labeled herbicides to control the woody vegetation, like bushes that are growing out of control, can also help the habitat and make it less suitable for rabbits. Actually, in the springtime here in Kansas, I'm pretty sure we also rabbits coming away from bushes of asters, of cornflowers. I have large patches of coreopsis and they're hiding in there. So I'm not going to cut my flowers to get rid of rabbits, but anything that's covered, there they are. So these are 2 nice pictures that show fencing, which is a way to protect from rabbits, especially the one with young trees, a fine mesh that has to be at least 20 inches tall, and also go deep inside so that they cannot go underneath it. Repellents are quite popular with rabbits. There are 2 types of repellents that are most commonly used: taste-based repellents and odor repellents. The taste-based repellents make the plants distasteful. Most often, hot pepper extract, capsaicin, is used, and also those based on the fungicide theorem. They don't like the taste. Odor repellents are a mix of odors created by eggs, garlic, and ammonium or potassium salt of salts, and it smells quite bad. Repellents are often applied directly to the soil around the perimeter of an area that needs to be protected, or as in the case of the hot pepper, cayenne pepper can be placed on the plant itself. These are the best repellents for rabbits. Dogs. Squirrels. If you know how to keep squirrels out of bird feeders or flower pots, please share your knowledge. As we all know, squirrels eat fruit, nuts, and vegetable crops. They'll bite in a tomato, find out that it's too green, and just toss it away and then go on to the next tomato. They will clip twigs and strip bark. They may chew into homes. They may chew on wires in the attics. Exclusion is a way to take care of them. Fencing, netting, repellents, especially the smell repellents, trapping, and euthanasia. But with squirrels, what really works very nicely is discourage feeding. So here we have two nice examples of squirrels that found food on the table and one that is used to take food from the hand. Raccoons. Very important to really make sure that the garbage has a good closing lid, and remove food sources, dog and cat food. Raccoons can be trapped, can be euthanized, or relocate. With relocation, they tend to come back to the site where they were captured. If they like somebody's yard and can get into the garbage, they'll be back. Skunks. With skunks, the major issue is the smell. Again, reduce the food source, which is dog and cat food. They get trapped or they can be euthanized. And this is the recipe for the odor neutralizing solution with hydrogen, 3% hydrogen, baking soda, and liquid soap. It has to be immediately used in a contaminated area and rinsed with large amounts of water. And this is a bat. So what is with bats? They roost in trees or buildings, or if you have a nice little bat house, high up, turns towards the south. Bats are insectivorous. They eat insects big time. There is a species, Tadaida brasiliensis, which is a Brazilian free-tailed bat, and it's not sometimes found in Kansas. This is something I forgot to take off. It is actually quite common in Kansas. We do know a Texas colony of this species with 20 million individuals can eat about 100,000 pounds of insect per night. So when it comes to mosquito control, bats are the best. The one drawback on bats is that they're disease transmitters, rabies and histoplasmosis. Data from until August 2018 in Kansas, where rabies was tested, found that out of 21 skunks that were caught, 16 carried the virus. And out of 183 bats, only 2 were positive for the rabies virus. So bats are not they can transmit rabies, but they're definitely not the primary vector for transmission. A few words about rabies control methods with wildlife. Don't handle it, just don't touch it. Call pest control or call the appropriate services to handle wildlife. Second, selective population control in high contact areas is usually in place. And third, exclude bats. Just don't. They're not the worst there. Now, snakes. Snakes are basically love to be where there is moisture, where there is water. There is only 5 species that are poisonous here in Kansas out of 38 different species. And again, snakes are actually quite useful animals. They really like to feed on rodents, on small mammals, on insects, on birds, other reptiles, and frogs. In the past 50 years, no one has died of a snake bite in Kansas. The management, as I mentioned before, remove or reduce their cover, dry the area. If you have a pond that is too close to the house, that is where you're going to find a snake. Remove the food supply and trap or hunt. So how to resolve the conflict that we have with wildlife in an urban area? Educate yourself and also educate others. and use the HER acronym. Habitat modification, take away the food, the water, the cover, get rid of the critter by excluding him, fencing, netting, repel it with stuff that tastes bad, that smells bad, or that feels in their mouth bad. Remove the critter, alive or dead, or you can scare the critter with sight and sound. So this is the list of additional sources and also sources where I found the data that I showed you. I also used Professor Lee's presentation that he used during the training for Master Gardener. And this is information about the case, the Shawnee County Extension Office. That is all I have. Please feel free to ask questions. Thank you.
That was great, Jackie. Thank you so much. In the chat box, Nathan Michael said that he uses cayenne pepper in his bird seed for the squirrels.
That's a great idea. Thank you. So pepper in the bird seed and birds don't mind it?
He says no. He says it doesn't bother them at all.
It seems like they like it well spiced.
They can't taste it.
They can't taste it?
No. No. But squirrels and rabbits sure can. It's pretty effective on both of them.
Oh, that's great. Great to know. So in a bag of food, just put cayenne pepper.
Right. I used to, when I had problems with squirrels getting into one of my feeders, I would just mix in cayenne pepper with my, with the seed, and it worked great. After a while, you know, they find something else to eat.
Okay. Squirrel stories. I found granules with garlic, mixed with garlic and peppermint oil, and put that in the pots, and that seems to keep them away. But as you water, as we have to water, it washes off, so you always have to add. So it, you know, it's not a cheap product, so I don't know how long I'm gonna do it because it costs quite a bit.
Sorry, I missed that. The cayenne costs a lot?
I'm sorry?
It's the cayenne that costs a lot?
No, the cayenne doesn't cost a lot, but this product is called Squirrel. It's a bottle that costs quite a bit. It's 18 bucks. So I tried it and it worked. But again, as you water, you dilute it.
Right.
Any other questions or comments?
I enjoyed your presentation. Oh, hey, Jackie, for anybody that might be in Manhattan, do you have any recommendations for controlling nuisance alligators?
That is so sad. What a sad, sad.
You know, when I read that one died, I just felt so bad. I mean, these poor animals. They're not my favorite, but they didn't deserve that.
That was too bad. Right, because both of those gators were like rescue animals that that had the pet store had. So, yeah, too bad. I mean, why would you steal somebody's alligators? I don't get that.
I saw that Carol mentioned something about shaving Irish Spring soap in the pots. Did I see that right? Can you please check, Leslie?
Yes, Carol Morgan says, shaving Irish Spring soap into my pots does seem to be successful in keeping the squirrels out. They just don't like the smell, I guess, she said.
No.
Okay, that's a cheap version. I can do that. And then I often put rocks around my plants if ever. Oh yeah, that I can imagine, the rocks for the little feet. Yeah.
One time I read that planting your bulbs with holly leaves discourages digging up of the bulbs, but I didn't really notice anything, and I thought it was kind of mean too. I felt bad afterwards, like, what am I doing?
Basically, I think here where I live, I mean, I saw coyotes, we saw foxes, we saw deer, rabbits are like, I'm just waiting for them to come and have breakfast at the table. There's so many of them, it's just annoying to no end. And squirrels, I mean, we're naming them. So the rabbits and squirrels are actually the biggest one. But here in Topeka, despite being, an urban center, it's just amazing the amount of wildlife that we can see in the neighborhood, in the center of town.
Yeah. I've noticed that the squirrels and the rabbits have both been very prolific this year. I've got,
Yes.
Jackie, when you're describing the stuff to remove to discourage rabbits, it's like you were just like, it's like you were looking at my backyard, and I have a whole herd of rabbits out there, but they don't bother me too much. Although, would you believe rabbits? I had this little prickly ash tree, and the rabbits ate that thing almost down to the ground. I'm like, they must really like the taste of it because it's all covered with thorns, But anyway, you never know sometimes what they'll decide they like to eat.
The baby bunnies, I feel sorry for them because they're still not very bright. So the dog will catch them, and they're not very quick. So it's sort of, I mean, I don't feel very sorry because they do eat my veggies, but sometimes I see that little tuft of white or tuft of hair in the backyard, and it's the dog who took care of it. But there's so many of them. Oh gosh, I mean, especially in the evening when you take a walk, you just see them sitting there in the yards, watching you walk, totally oblivious. Anyway, any other questions?
Well, there's one more comment. Carolyn Seals says, cut holes for your potted plants in a piece of window screen and lay the screen down. You can even put a little soil or mulch over it so it doesn't show. And she's used this technique with a lot of success.
Yes, I heard about that, the screen, yes, because they cannot get into it. That would be it's cheap, that would be worth trying.
Yeah. Well, and if you have problems with squirrels digging up your bulbs, you can do a similar thing with burying a piece of chicken wire down in the ground above your bulbs, and it helps keeping them from digging them up and eating them up. Of course, you have that wire you have to be sure to, take up in the fall, but it's pretty effective to,
Okay, I see Nathan mentioned, would you please show?
Yeah, it says Nathan has plenty of rabbits eating his lilies. So he finds a motion detector sprinkler, and it works fairly well, but when it's windy, it goes off more often.
Oh, yeah. But it works otherwise when it's not windy.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, the lilies, they eat the lilies. Oof. Yeah. So are they expensive?
It was around $50. I found it at Menards, and it was called a scarecrow.
Uh-huh.
And I took the last one. But then they get more.
Let me get more. Okay.
The only
Good.
other
So
thing I
looks
have to
like
worry
it's all
about.
webinars.
The only other thing I have to worry about is just that you don't have any leaks in your hoses because you have to leave your water turned on
Right.
for it to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and
Good.
certainly with the weather we've been having, you don't have to worry about overwatering your lilies either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Well, you know, one thing that is an issue in my neighborhood is these feral cats.
Mm.
You know, I guess I could call animal control, but you know, I mean, my backyard is like a little urban wildlife sanctuary, so I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get rid of the cover that attracts them, and I'm not gonna take down my bird feeding station, but they are an annoyance, though.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try one of those motion detector sprinklers. They hate getting wet, you know. I might have to check that out. That's it. That's an idea.
Okay.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, Jackie, thank you so very much again for your presentation, and thank you all to the participants today. Please join us next week at this time where entomologist and Xerces Outreach Ambassador, Dr. Daphne Mays, will give her presentation, Native Bees. Very excited for that one. So
Yeah, and he
hope
does
everyone, yeah, I hope everyone has a great day. Stay cool. Don't forget to fill out our super quick survey.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jackie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.